All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, great millstone. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is Ratazah from the Great Millstone GMS Atlanta camp with another video. All right, and the title of this video is Christians are missing part 2 of the story, or part 2 of the movie. And this inspiration for this video just came from, me just meditating, just thinking out loud. How sometimes you get to talking to yourself in the spirit, thinking back on things. And I was just thinking about, dealing with these Christians, on how basically a common discussion or back and forth that we have with Christians is the topic of the Gentiles of the New Testament, or these Greeks that you read about in the New Testament, and whether all nations can be saved, and this salvation, and the different covenants that the Most High made with the Israelites exclusively. Are these covenants now opened up to all nations, where all nations can receive salvation? So this is a common dialogue that we, as who believe we are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Hebrew Israelites, coming back to who we truly are. And when we speak to these Christians that follow the religion of Christianity, this is what we usually talk about, among other topics, but this is the main one. And I'm gonna get into the scripture in just a second, but I just want to set this video up. The premise of it, basically, the reason why Christians are lost concerning the New Testament and they don't have the correct understanding on it, is because you're missing part 2 of the story. And what you should be seeing on your screen is a thumbnail of the Apocrypha, all right, which indeed is a part of the Bible. Okay, the Apocrypha, which the word Apocrypha means to be sent away, hidden. All right, these are the books that are also contained in the original 1611 King James Bible. And this is like the glue. All right, you got the Old Testament, the Apocrypha, and New Testament. So when you get to the New Testament, it speaks heavily on these Greeks, these Greek Gentiles, and the apostles, like the Apostle Paul, the other apostles that was sent out. A question that's asked is, why was there such an emphasis on them going to these Greeks? Like, why were they so eager and so zealous to reach out to these Greeks? I mean, there's other nations out there. You got the Hamites, which consists of Cush, Put, Canaan, and Mizraim, Egypt. You got the Moabites, Ammon, like this. So Ishmael, which is a so-called Arab. You have so many nations out there. Why is the New Testament so focused on these Greeks? But again, if you miss part 2 of the story, you'll be lost. You think it's talking about so-called white people and everybody, man. It's just like, again, before I get into the scriptures, it's like, again, you watch like this movie John Wick, right? When I was thinking, this is the movie that came to mind. You watch this movie John Wick, it has 3 parts: part 1, part 2, part 3. Now if you barely watch part 1, right, you went to the movie theater or you watched it on TV and you slept through most of the movie, which is equivalent to Christians when it comes to the Old Testament. The Old Testament would be part 1, dealing with this comparison or analogy. You done slept through most of the Old Testament. You don't know what the Old Testament is talking about. Christians don't go into the prophecies of Isaiah and Jeremiah. You don't deal with the law. You read a couple scriptures out of Psalms and Proverbs, and you don't even understand that. So you missed most of part 1. You didn't show up for part 2, which is part 2 in this scenario, is analogy would be the Apocrypha. All right, you didn't watch going back to now, you didn't go to the theater to see John Wick 2, but then here it is, you show up to part 3 thinking that you're going to know what's going on, and you don't, which part 3 will be what? The New Testament, man. So you missed most of part 1, you slept through it, don't understand it, you didn't even watch the sequel, all right, and then you show up to part 3 thinking you know what the movie franchise is about. No, you don't. you're gonna be lost. You ain't gonna know why John Wick is after this person. Who is this trying to kill him, and why is he? You're gonna be completely lost. So that's basically Christianity, man. When you get to the New Testament, you don't know what you're talking about concerning these Greeks and these Gentiles. Because why? You don't know the history. Now I'm gonna read this real quick. This is St. John 7, and I'm gonna read it in the original King James. I'm gonna read some of these translations. It says St. John 7:35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go? Who's the he? He's talking about Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. Whither will he go, that we should not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Now, who's the dispersed? The dispersed is talking about Israel, the Israelites. Dispersed means to be scattered abroad. And why were they scattered? Because of the curses. Going back to Deuteronomy 28, I believe 64. Whereas the Israelites, if they didn't keep the law, statutes, commandments, and keep the covenant in the truce that they made between them and the Most High, the Lord was going to put the curse upon them, and he scattered them among all nations. All right. Now, when you read this, the translation here in the CSB, then the Jews said one to another, where does he intend to go? So we won't find him. Well, he doesn't intend to go to the Jewish people dispersed among the Greeks and teach the Greeks. Does he? All right, this is the New King James Version. Then the Jews said among themselves, where does he intend to go that we should not find him? Does he intend to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? Now, that's, again, going back to the question, why is there such an emphasis on these Greeks when you get to the New Testament? All right, because we understand that there's 4 major captivities that the Israelites would go through. Let's go to Zechariah. All right, I'm gonna utilize this in this video. Zechariah 1, and it speaks about the 4 let's see where we at. Zechariah 1 and 18. Then I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, 4 horns. Okay, when you go through this, the horns are talking about the 4 captivities. Horn represents powers or rulerships. All right, which you understand the 4 horns going into the Syrian Babylonian captivity. All right, you got the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greeks, and then the Romans. Okay, those are the 4 major, the 4 captivities that the Israelites went through. And it says what? 19. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the 4 horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. See that? So the tribes, they were scattered among these different captivities, man. Which the 3rd captivity being the Greeks, the Greek Empire, which the Old Testament, all right, from Genesis to Malachi, doesn't speak about the Greek captivity in detail, man. But where you got to go to get that, you got to go to the book of Maccabees, which is where you Christians out there stumble at. You missing that part of the history, the story. All right. It says, and the Lord showed me 4 carpenters, which is going into the 4 archangels, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, and Raphael, right? But that's the point. You got the four horns, or the 4 major captivities, but the Greek Empire is not spoken of in depth or in detail in the Old Testament. You got to get that history in the Apocrypha. So that's why the Apostle Paul, let's start, I'm going to get 2 Maccabees 6 in just a second. Let's go to 1 Maccabees 1, because that's why the Apostle Paul and the other disciples, their mission was to go to these Greeks. You know, actually, so why, like, what makes the Greeks so goddamn special, man? Well, because the Israelites were heavily Hellenized. All right, let's get it. 1 Maccabees 1 and let's start at 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. Speaking of Alexander the Great. All right, we call him Alexander the Crete. All right, it says, and his servants bear rule every one in his place. All right, the Diadochi, or the 4 generals. All right, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lacomaeus, Lasameacus, and Cassander, right? The four generals. It says, and after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evil was multiplied on the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes. All right, that little horn that came up. Let me read Daniel's 8th chapter. Son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year, the kingdom of the Greeks. This is secular history, on point, accurate history. All right, which a lot of your top these Christian leaders that you have, they'll disregard this. They won't go into this. But this is Israelite. This is secular history. Verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. So you had sellout Israelites that wanted to basically make a covenant and cleave onto the ways of these Greeks so that they can have it good and easy. It says, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. See, they didn't want to just follow the laws, statutes, commandments of the Most High and just bear their burdens. They wanted to latch on to the ways of the Greeks and basically trim their way, like it says in Jeremiah 2:33. 12. So this device pleased them well. All right, device means plan. 13. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. They were Hellenized, which we're going to get that word in just a second. Whereupon they built a place of exercise in Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. You see that? These are your Greeks. These are the Greeks that the Apostle Paul and the other disciples and apostles were reaching out to. Wasn't reaching out to the so-called white man, reaching out to the Chinese. The Greeks is talking about are these Jews or Israelites that basically fell away and took after the ways of the Greeks, man. Let's prove it. Let's go to Google, because I don't have the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, but even in there it tells you, when you go into the word Hellen or Hellenized, all right, it speaks about what the Hellenist, or what Jews that made Greek their tongue and took after their customs. Let's look up Hellenized. Let's look up Hellenized Jew. Let's see what comes up. I looked it up earlier, but okay, this is on Google, right? This is under what does Hellenized mean? To make Greek or Hellenistic in form of culture. That's what the Israelites did, or a portion of the Israelites did. They made Greek their culture. Right. So this is under what does Hellenistic mean in the Bible? What do you mean when you say Hellen? This is under pbs.org. What do you mean when you say Hellenistic? Hellenization or Hellenism refers to the spread of Greek culture that had begun after the conquest of Alexander the Great in 4th century BCE, which we just read that out of the Apocrypha. So how is the Apocrypha not accurate, man? It says the conquest by Alexander, which brought Greek culture to the Middle Eastern territories. This is under where does Hellenistic Jews come from? It says traditionally Hellenistic Judaism, which we don't follow Judaism. It says was a designation for Judaism in the Greek-speaking world, including those Jews who spoke Greek and adopted, and it says in parentheses, to some extent, a Greek way of life. It has been argued, however, that all Judaism after the conquest of Alexander was Hellenistic Judaism. So essentially, Jews that left their true way, all right, and took after the ways of the Greeks. That's why. You see, but again, if you missed this history or you didn't watch part 2, you're going to get to part 3 and be lost and think that you know what you're talking about, but you don't. Let's go to 2 Maccabees now. Chapter 6, beginning at verse 1. Okay, Second Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God. See that? So it was a certain man that went out and was basically sent to basically tell the Jews to sell out. You know, to leave off from what you was doing, leave off keeping the Sabbath, growing your beard, wearing your garments, border blue, abstaining from pork and shellfish. You know, leave off that and basically act like Greeks. And it's going to tell you, verse 2, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call into the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwell in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. Yeah, it's mischief, man. Verse 4, for the temple was filled with riot and revelings by the Gentiles who dally with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of holy places, and besides that brought things that were unlawful, but that were not lawful, excuse me. 5, the altar also was filled with profane things which the Lord forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or profess himself at all to be a Jew. See that? So it was a crime if during this during this Greek captivity, all right, while we were under the thumb of the Greeks, it was a crime to call yourself a Jew. Yeah, I'm a Jew. I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, or whatever. All right, that was a crime. So if they didn't call themselves Jews, what did they call themselves? They called themselves Greeks. Okay, they called themselves Greeks. 7, in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices, and when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy, all right, it was one of the generals, against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. This is the answer. Man, let me finish it off before I go on. Verse 9, and whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. See that? This is the answer to why there's such a emphasis in a scope on these Greeks in the New Testament. This is the answer. We just read it in First Maccabees 1 and Second Maccabees 6, because the Jews were forced to live after the Greek way of life, Hellenization, which we just read it in off Google. You see, so this is the part 2 for you Christians out there, you know, the likes of Vocab Malone and really, you know, his followers, okay, which I see a lot of Jake's follower after that. This is what you missing. This is what you missing. Okay, so when you get to the New Testament and you come across Greek, like if you do a word search for Greek, okay, when you come across Greek in the New Testament, that's why it's so it's so heavily spoke on, man. Like for example, let's see, Romans 1 and 6. Let's see, Romans 1 and 16. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Hamashiach, for it is the power of the Most High unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. So you read that, you think, oh, see, he's talking about so. Well, in your mind, whether you want to admit it or not, you think about the so-called white man. You think about Greek, okay? Because you understand that the Greeks of old in that Greek Empire were so-called white people. So you thinking about, see, it could be for the so-called white man, which somehow miraculously means for everybody. No, man, the Greeks is talking about is the Greeks that we just read about in Maccabees, the Israelites that were forced to live that way of life. They were Hellenized. Romans 10 and 12. For there's no difference between Jew and Greek. There's no difference between a Jew that was raised in Judea, that spoke Hebrew and kept the laws of the Most High, whatever, and an Israelite that was raised in Greek customs, because why? They both descend of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're still Israelites. Just the other Israelite was Hellenized and took out the Greek customs. They're both Israelites. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Now the proof that they was reaching out to Israelites, Ephesians 2nd chapter. Let's read that real quick and I'll sign off in just a second. Ephesians 2 in verse 11. Excuse me. It says, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called a circumcision in flesh made by hands, which we just read that in what Maccabees they were told that they were supposed to be uncircumcised as a part of what, leaving off from their true nature and joining to the heathen nations. And the circumcision represents the Israelites that was still keeping the laws, that stand in Jerusalem. Verse 12, that at that time ye were without the anointed, or it says Christ here, but we say anointed, being aliens, which is strangers, from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without God in the world. But now in Hamashiach Yahushua, ye are sometime ye who were sometimes were far off, are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach, which is what? Israelites. Okay, they were once far off. They were strangers to the covenant. They were strange. They were speaking Greek. They had Greek names. You know, they wearing togas and all that, worshiping Jupiter and Mars and all that, eating pork. You know, but then what? Through the preaching of the gospel, you know, and through Yahushua's sacrifice, they are now brought back, which goes into the olive tree parable in Romans 11. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick, and I'll sign off, because there's a point I wanted to make real quick. Romans 11, and let's see, 11 and 17. Because it speaks about that wild olive tree, and you had branches on the tree that was broken off. The branches that was broken off in this analogy is talking about the Israelites that were Hellenized and fell away because of the captivity and the scattering. Romans 11 and 17. And some of the branches being broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Thou will say then the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. So if basically it said be grafted in. So basically, in order for you to be grafted in, you had to be a part of the tree in the first place. The other nations were never a part of the tree. It was always about Israel, man. All right, because who's known as the olive tree in the scriptures? Is it everybody? Is the world the olive tree, or is it specific to one nation? I think that's what I wanted. Let's see. I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to link it up with Jeremiah 11, because Romans 11 and Jeremiah 11 they go together. Jeremiah 11 and Jeremiah 11 and 16. It says, the Lord called thy name. Matter of fact, let's start up. Jeremiah 11 and 1 and 2. The word came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, hear the words of this covenant, and speak it to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. See that? So this is written to the Israelites. So we know who it's talking about. So when you go down to verse 16, it says, the Lord called thy name a green olive tree. See that? Fair and of a goodly fruit, with the noise of a great tumult. He have kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken off. You see that? For the Lord of hosts that planted thee have pronounced evil against thee, for the evil of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, Israelites, 12 tribes, both kingdoms, which they have done against themselves to provoke me to anger and offer incense unto Baal. So the Lord punished the tribes. One of the punishments was what? Scattering them abroad. The branches got broken off, man. The ones that got broken off, they got snared in that Greek captivity and they got Hellenized. See that? So Jeremiah 11 and Romans 11 it pairs each other. And that's spiritual. It's like the same chapter. So when you read about the branches being broken off and grafted, it says grafted back in. The other nations was never a part of the tree, man. We just read who the tree is talking about. Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. All right. So I just wanted to go into that real quick, man. This is on my spirit, man. All right. You ain't Christians that's still teaching that man. You ain't watched part 2 of the movie. You disregard that. And a lot of Christians don't even know about the Apocrypha, man. You know, we've had so many times when we be on the highways and byways, you know, having a discussion or dialogue with a Christian. We pull out the Apocrypha. He like, what book is that? What book is that y'all got? It's like, you don't know about the Apocrypha? No. You see? Well, that's why the reason why that's why you so confused, man. And you can't understand the New Testament, the Greeks and the Gentiles and all that, because you missing hundreds of years of history, man. All right. But yeah, man, I just wanted to hit the point on that. Lord willing, this was an edifying video. All right, I ain't want to be too long with it. Giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua by Hashem Rakha Kodash. Lord willing, to the next lesson. Shalom.